Welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for joining me. Now, today we're going to talk about something I didn't think I would speak on, but here we are. After a little bit of time, a little bit of thinking, I've decided I'm going to say what I have to say about what this man, Harrison Butker, had to say. Harrison Butker is a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's also a conservative Catholic who clearly hates our current president, right? And that's fine, right? We don't all have to agree on everything, right? But I will say that I disagree with him on a lot of what he had to say. But also at the same time, I will stand right here by his side and defend his right to say it. Because it's America, we have free speech. Now, let's give a little backstory here. Mr. Butker is a Catholic, and he gave a commencement speech at a Catholic university in Missouri. So, clearly his speech was not really going to be that far from the norm, I would think, at a Catholic university. Especially if it's one that is actually religious as opposed to just, affiliated, right? Because there are schools that are based around churches in certain places, like in different Catholic universities, that make at least appear more secular, right? But sometimes they're not, and that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with choosing a university that aligns with your faith. There's nothing wrong with that. What I do have a problem with, though, is when you clearly lace your speech with homophobia, sexism, and more misogyny, and just misogyny in general. But we're going to read a little bit of what he had to say. I'm not going to sit here and read his whole speech. We ain't got that much time today. He says, while COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from a pervasiveness of disorder. Right there literally sums up the entire speech. Right? He's giving a religious political speech at a commencement. People don't understand the outrage. I see why people are outraged. I see why people are angry. Because the people on the right are celebrating what he had to say. They think it's something awesome what he had to say, and that's their right. But at the same time, when people like LeBron James and NFL players like Colin Kaepernick took knees on the field or spoke out against racism, there were either crickets from the right or y'all need to shut up and play. I wonder why. Why is it that when a black athlete speaks their political minds, people tell them to shut up and dribble? Just play the game. But when a white athlete speaks of their faith and their beliefs, they are cheered. They are somehow considered important. But like I said, I will defend his right to say what he had to say. He went on to discuss women at one point. But before we get to that, let's go in order here. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. Now, let's make it clear what President Biden has said over the years, especially on the case of abortion. Joe Biden has made it very clear that he is personally against abortion. He's made that clear because his faith tells him that he's not allowed to support such things personally. Right? Like I'm sure he would never have someone go have an abortion. I'm sure he wouldn't pay a woman to go have an abortion, Mr. Trump, which is alleged to have happened in the past. But what he does do, and it doesn't make him delusional by any way, Harrison, what it says is that Joe Biden understands his faith is personal to him, and that not everybody else holds his faith. Not everybody is Catholic. Not everybody is pro-life. Not everybody belongs to a church that believes that things like that are necessarily problematic, given the situation. Now, it doesn't make anyone delusional. I've known a lot of Catholics that are pro-choice. I've known a lot of them that were Catholic and pro-choice. But you can be part of a religion and not wholeheartedly believe every single thing about it, right? I used to be part of the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church, as I remember it, wasn't really fond of female pastors. Now things have changed now, and there are a lot of them now, which I find great. Back then, I didn't, as a child and a teenager, I didn't understand why women weren't supposed to be pastors. It made no sense to me. It was just sexist. To me, not allowing them to be pastors is still sexist. But, you know, his sister and I, goes on to, and here's where the transphobia comes in. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns, by the way, Mr. Butker, that was Donald Trump, to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America. He goes on to say, pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America. They all have one glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic doesn't cut it. Well, here's the thing about that. Who instituted the lockdowns originally? Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump is not Catholic. So this is another one of those things. This is where the politics come in really hardcore right here. Okay? Donald Trump is the one that instigated the first lockdowns. In fact, Texas was one of the first states to institute a lockdown. One of the reddest states in the entire country. Short of maybe Alabama. Was one of the first in the entire union to institute a lockdown, to the point that my ability to move from Texas to Oklahoma was hampered because the people that I wanted to bring in that were going to come help me drive a truck, a U-Haul from Nacogdoches, Texas to Norman, Oklahoma, were in Louisiana, and they weren't allowed to enter the state. So don't tell me about lockdowns being instituted by Joe Biden. Joe Biden didn't institute anything new. All he did was bring sanity to the process. So I totally disagree with what he had to say there. But it's fact that he goes on to talk about pushing dangerous gender ideologies on the youth. What kind of bullshit is that? Nobody is pushing gender identity on the youth. In fact, by the time a kid is 4 years old, they're pretty sure of their gender and how they feel about their gender. This isn't something new. This isn't just something made up. People know who they are at a fairly early age. Nobody is making these kids be trans. These kids just happen to be trans. Somewhere between 2 and 3 years old, kids start to gain an idea of self and gender. What makes them a boy? What makes them a girl? They know this from an early age. So there's no pervasiveness of people forcing certain gender ideologies onto children. There's just more medical science out there proving what these kids are feeling. So more doctors are taking that into account. There are medical facilities now that do nothing but study this stuff. They don't push it on the kids. There's no one out there telling kids they have to be this or have to be that. That doesn't exist. That's not happening. But after he spends all this time railing against that, right, he gets down here to where he's talking about women. Let me find it here. Well, I can't find where it is in here. But he goes talking about women and how the most diabolical lies have been forced onto women, making them choose a career over children, basically. Basically stating that women are supposed to be home and in the kitchen and making babies. That was the gist of his argument. Let me see if I can find this here. And it's absolutely infuriating, but I think I finally found the part. He goes, okay, I'll read this section. For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Many of you sitting here now are about to cross the stage and are thinking about all the promotions and the titles you're going to get in your career. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into the world. Now, people like Bill Maher didn't understand why people were upset about that. But what he is literally saying is that women, their only function in life is to be married and make children. And that's it. Now, that may not have been exactly what he meant, but that sure is how it comes across. Because I know a lot of women out there who that I've talked to over the years, friends of mine from high school, whose goal in life was to be a mom. And that was the only goal they had. And you know what? That is a perfectly valid choice to make in life. If that is what a person wants to do, is their main goal in life is to be a mother, to be the best parent they could possibly ever be, then I commend them for that. Because being a mom is not easy. Being a mom is absolutely one of the hardest, probably the hardest thing that a human being can do. And I'm not just talking about the birthing process, because that's a totally different story on how that is to women. But being a mom, it's work. It's hard. Like, my mom adopted me and my brother. And it was one of the many things she wanted to do was be a mom. And it was rough. It was hard for her, especially having a disabled child. She didn't know what to do. But we made it through because she was determined to be a good mother, to do the best she could for her kids. And I commend that. But also, I was raised by two very strong, independent women who also had careers. My mom and my grandmother. Because my dad was pretty much out of the picture since I was 12 or 13 years old. But I was raised by two very stubborn, very independent, strong women. And I've also known people from high school and from college, women that were extremely career driven, whose goals didn't involve becoming a mother. But to sit there and act as if most women are just worried about their marriage and if they're going to have children and when they're going to have children discounts what women are and what women can do. Women are not just there to, be an object for men. Something that men can lean on all the time. And they're not always going to want to have women. Not all women are going to want to have babies. And that's a valid choice too. But from his speech, it seemed as if he was denigrating the women that choose to have careers over being a mother. Now, here's where it's going to be different compared to some other people here on the left. I absolutely disagree with everything he had to say. I do not approve of what he had to say. I don't agree with it. But you know what? He's an American. And as back-assward and misogynistic as he came off, and how transphobic and homophobic he came off, he has his right to speak. I want to make that clear. Because there are people on the right that think the people on the left are mad that he said it and that he shouldn't have had a right to say it. That's not what any of us are saying. We're just saying we believe he's wrong, which is our right as Americans. Now, there are people that have started petitions to have him kicked off the Chiefs and, be blacklisted from the NFL like they did Colin Kaepernick. Well, here's the thing I'm going to say about that. That's stupid. Because Colin Kaepernick should have never been kicked off or kicked out of the NFL or blacklisted, as it seems he was, for making a political point. And he shouldn't be, blacklisted and kicked out of the NFL either. It's just not right. People having different political views and different religious views does not mean they should be fired. Does not mean they shouldn't have a job. Now, we've talked about, it depends what you're doing, right? He gave a speech. That's protected by the First Amendment. protesting, protected by the First Amendment, unless you're on the left, right? But what I want to leave you with is this. The issue that you're finding from a lot of people on the left right now isn't what he said, isn't the fact that he had the right to say it, but the simple fact that when black athletes speak their mind, they're told to shut up and play, and when white athletes speak, they're commended. That is the problem people are having. Sure, there are issues with what he had to say. Very misogynistic, very transphobic, very homophobic. But I expect no less from a far-right, radical conservative. Anyways, this has been the Big Rant Show. Thank you for joining me.